Iran is degraded but, and that's what we're dealing with today, because we know we're in the middle of a conflict. Okay, so let's take a look. Everybody keeps asking, what are the objectives? What are the objectives? Nobody's telling us what they're really going to do. And I say, you don't have to listen to speeches. You have to see what the geopolitical situation is worldwide and what are the interests of the players that are involved. Okay, so let's remember something. We finished the 12-day war in June 2025. And both the United States, led by Donald Trump, right, and Israel, led by Netanyahu, said that, we achieved it. Iran is knocked out. Their nuclear facilities are not, can't be in use. Ballistic missiles are taken out. And lo and behold, as all of us in Israel know, that when this war broke out, there was kind of a different tune here of saying that we have to halt the Iranian nuclear armament and the ballistic missiles and rockets and all that. So wait a minute, didn't we get rid of all this stuff? Apparently, either was overestimated or overstated, and there was probably a bit of politics involved. As we know, whenever you're dealing with this stuff, war and politics go hand in hand. So the question is, okay, so what are the objectives now? So take a look at them. They really haven't changed that much. One, and we take it the coordinated policy, is knocking out the Iranian nuclear armament. Now, they told Steve Witkoff in their negotiations that they had something like, what was it, 10 or 11 nuclear devices, right, could be made within a few weeks. And they thought that they were, that way pressuring him. Of course, he went back to Trump about this and said, okay, what do we do? And the answer would be, and I think it was the correct answer, got to take them out before they do it, because who knows, right? If that's what they're saying, even if they're exaggerating, maybe it's a month or two away. Far too dangerous. So that was one. Eliminate the nuclear armament potential. Two, eliminate or halt the ballistic and rocket capabilities. They still have lots of them. I spend a lot of time now on YouTube in these sort of specialty presentations, where there's a lot of stuff that's about Iran, and that they actually have all these massive underground bunkers with apparently thousands and thousands of rockets that we can't really get to. Only the American bunker busters can do it. And they can't even, what they basically could do is blow up the entrances and exits from them and then bury everything. So apparently that's what's been done just recently. And it has, I wouldn't say 100% eliminated the capabilities, but it's definitely made it harder to get to these rockets if they're buried under rubble. Now, the third objective here with curtailing, destroying the proxies, we know of two of them, right? Hezbollah, and those of us who live in the northern part of Israel, as well as other parts now as well, getting hit by Hezbollah rockets. And there's no time to flee. In this part of the country, zilch show, 30 seconds. Alarms go off by the time you get into, the safe room, the mamad. And sometimes before you get the door shut already, you can hear all the noise outside, which is a very big problem. Certainly if people are outside. And, some people are caught on the road, in traffic. Very unpleasant. Okay. And with that, it's not just knocking out Hezbollah. Both the United States and Israel agree that you have to bring Lebanon into the pro-Western orbit, but that's very problematic. The Houthis in Yemen. They have not yet gotten involved directly. Everybody's a little bit surprised they haven't done anything, but they say they're holding back and everybody has some sort of suggestion of what the reason would be. I can't tell you for sure, but I believe that they may not have all the weaponry they really want. They have to be taken out in any case or curtailed, and that's going to come down to a Saudi issue, because Israel can't do it from the air, okay? But they also could block the Bab el-Mandeb, just like the Iranians are blocking the Hormuz Strait. U.S. global objectives are curtailing Russia and China. Israel's not there. We are with the American policy, but Israel does want decent relations with Russia and China. Not that America doesn't, but they see themselves direct adversaries. Israel can't be a direct adversary. We're far too small and insignificant for Russia and China. So that's a U.S. global objective. Whereas in Israel, and here we don't agree with the United States, there's no full agreement, it's partial. Yes, both want the regime, not the one that's in power, but in Israel, we want full regime change. We don't want any jihadis there, no Islamists. But the United States is saying you could have a regime shift. In other words, bring in some of the moderates. We don't trust, quote, moderates. They talk nice, and then we know that surreptitiously, under the table, they're doing other things. We don't trust them. So that's a bit of a disagreement, but it's nothing that's so enormous. So let's take a look at this, what we call this epic fury roaring lion operation. Excuse me. That began on February 28th, which, by the way, was meant to begin in June. Why in June? Because it's clear, the weather's good. You notice how much rain we've been getting, as well as the cloud cover over Tehran. There's been some rain and snow. It's a mess. We didn't have much of a choice, seeing that they had moved up quickly with the nuclear development, and that suddenly their whole leadership was together. That's just come out. And it was decided to hit them when you could get them all. Now, Khamenei's son had stepped out of the meeting. He didn't get killed, he got injured. And rumors are, no, nobody's heard from him. And he was appointed 12 days ago or something like that. Nobody's heard from him. Apparently, he's in Russia getting medical treatment. So, briefly, to review, we know there were aerial attacks, a lot of damage done to Iran, not only physically, but to their infrastructure, but the economy and personnel. Right, we're talking about the whole leadership there being taken out, whether it's military uh, or the civilian leadership, clerical, right, on and on. Okay, Israel, come to us, right? The targets that have been hit, you have the whole northern border area. We have a kibbutznik that was killed today in Mizgavam this morning because of Hezbollah opening fire. And yes, the center of the country. And just now, right, we had the area of Dimona and Arad, which is to the south. They're aiming at Dimona. That's where we have our facility. Okay. In Iran, as we know, I just mentioned, right, personnel taken out, but also continually pounding, degrading, right? There's degrade, destroy. So their nuclear ballistic military abilities and economic, the oil and gas. And here there's disagreement, Israel and the United States, even though we know Israel got the go-ahead for bombing just recently one of the energy targets in Iran. Then Trump was asked about it. He said, no, well, I told Netanyahu he shouldn't do that. Whatever else apparently was coordinated, but there was backlash. And the truth of the matter is, you don't want to destroy their economy totally, right? If whoever takes over needs to work with something. Okay, Arab states, right, have been suffering a lot of damages. Now, this was a surprise. Who expected they would start pounding all the Arab countries? That sounds like a very stupid thing to do. They thought that that would get the leadership of the Gulf states to object and tell the Americans to knock it off because they're getting damaged also. Now remember, they don't have bunkers. They don't have safe rooms, mamadim, shelters. They never thought this would happen, which is a little ridiculous because it was a 12-day war and they were on edge, but they decided not to spend the money, which was very, very short-sighted. In any case, the Iranians actually miscalculated because although the Gulf states have not declared war on them, they now on the diplomatic level are very much on the American side. I wouldn't say they're so on the Israeli side. Some are, and they won't say it. But the Iranians have made themselves into an implacable enemy amongst the leadership of the Gulf states. Even Qatar, the closest ally, is quite furious with them. Right? Remember, they shared jihad together, undermining the American education system, as we know, for the past 15, 20 years. Okay? Not only did they hit the gas and oil refineries in the Gulf states, they went after airports and certain civilian population centers. We know the Iranians do that. It's another form of terrorism. And what everybody's speaking about now, blockade of the the Strait of Hormuz, with an economic fallout worldwide, $100 a barrel of oil. I find it strange that the American gasoline prices are going up so much. America's not dependent on imports, particularly. Oil companies make money no matter what, right? Okay. And yes, there's lots of issues with NATO. Are they going to send some flotilla? Now they're saying yes at the beginning. No, it's your war. We don't have nothing to do with it. But they realize if the world economy is affected, so is Europe. So we have the picture here, right? The Strait of Hormuz, and hundreds of ships are caught in here, and hundreds more are waiting out in the Gulf of Oman. We'll see what happens. The biggest liquid natural gas reserves in the world are here between Qatar and Iran, and it's split in half where my blue cursor is. Okay, and that is, I would say, the major field that everybody's concerned about. Okay, so what about Iranian regime collapse? Everybody wants to know, when is it going under? Well, I wouldn't say any time soon, with meaning within the next few days. However, let's take a look, and you have to break down Iranian security forces into four different units. One, the police. Let's recall, the police are not exactly your riot police. You send out the Basij for that. This is your, I'll call it your flunky cops. You know, the guys who, they're married to the population. They're a neighbor of yours. They're in your, town neighborhood. You see them around. Yes, they deal with crime. They direct traffic. Usual policing types of things. They're sort of the lowest guy on the totem pole, and apparently not paid so well either. Not that there's a currency left to pay with. All right. Will they stand down and change sides? I believe they certainly could, but the amount of arms and ammunition they have won't make a tremendous amount of difference. It can help a bit. In other words, it would like be giving support to the people. Okay? I believe they could be the first ones to go, shift sides, but their weight is not so great. Secondly, the military, Artesh, right? The official army of Iran is a draft army. Draft army with 80% of the population is against the regime. So 80% of your draftees are as well. That's basically it. And these kids, drafted at the age of 18, how long are they going to support this regime? Well, how much are they willing to put their lives on the line? Yes, they have officers. But the same thing with the officer corps, lower ranking. The loyalty could very much shift. And we know the IRGC has spies or oversight, supervision of the army to make sure they stay loyal. So what's that tell you? Okay. Now, moving down, you have possibilities, right? Or I should say, who are the players on the political clerical side? You have Mujtaba Khamenei, right? Who's said to be the clerical leader, who's also in charge of the IRGC. But he apparently doesn't have much weight. He's possibly not even in the country. Nobody's heard from him. His replacement, Ali Larijani, was just eliminated a few days ago. He was the strongman in Iran, and it's spoken about that he was strongman in Iran since the demonstrations that were repressed, that he's the one who gave the orders, and he was at the top running that oppression that killed 40,000 demonstrators and many others, right, who were jailed, died in jail, tortured to death, killed in hospitals, and medical staff that was arrested and tortured for treating the demonstrators. He was the one, right? He was the strong man doing it. He was just taken out. Now, with him being taken out, there's this question of who's next in the leadership, because you could have technically people moving up. We know a whole 2-3 levels of leadership have been taken out. But he was the last real strong man that had authority that was there. He's gone already for a few days. So they say the regime is somewhat in disarray. Are we sure? I'm not. I don't need a lot of information, and you have to see what's happening on the ground. In the meantime, I think we're in a bit of a period where we need to see how things either congeal or disintegrate. Okay, so the IRGC, they are the regime, and they will support the regime, and they own the infrastructure. And we've been through this, discussed it here and there at different times, that when you speak of the regime, it's the IRGC. The clergy, which previously was said to have a lot of power, apparently is being sidelined. Okay, weapons speak, firepower speaks, certainly in a war. The Basij, they're the auxiliaries, acting as a policing force. They're the ones who put down the demonstrations. They're the ones who fire into the crowds. They're the ones on the motorcycles that you see. They beat people on and on, right? And attack the women who are not wearing hijabs at times, right? With the modesty police who are actually female. All this stuff. Okay? There is a question about them. It's come up. I was very sure they would be fully with the regime, but there are articles out there saying that, you know what, they get all sorts of perks from the regime. They don't exactly get a salary directly, many of them. Others do, right? And that they're the ones to watch. We know Israel's been going after them with drones. So they should feel very unsafe in putting down demonstrations. So there are some reports that some of the Basij are, how should we say, no longer with the program of the regime. I would say be very careful. I think the reports at the moment are exaggerated. We have to see what happens. Okay? One can expect them to support the regime because they have been, and they're roundly hated. In other words, where do they have to go? They just go to the other side and people accept them? They're not like the police or the Artesh, the regular army. Okay, so you see lots of pictures of Mahmoud Pezeshkian on the lower left. He's the president of Iran. He has no power. He's considered the reformer. He would like to come to an agreement with the West. He still demands Israel's destruction, but not too vehemently. But those in power can't stand him. And he's the face of the regime. Okay, and there are those who actually call him traitors and say he's, put up a white flag, especially when he spoke about the water catastrophe in the country, especially Tehran. Their idea was, why is he talking about this at all? Okay, now, if we want to go for regime collapse to see where it goes, first of all, the Basij and the IRGC have to be curtailed, contained, destroyed, forced to flee, whatever. It's not happening so fast. Two, there would also need to be a civil uprising because they're not going to fall apart until there really is one and there's a clash. And three, and I put question marks here, aid by physical invasion. We'll have a map at the end, all right? Physical invasion, well, from where? Azerbaijan, possible. The Kurds, possible. It's been discussed. But what about minority uprisings elsewhere? There's also a discussion about Pakistan in southeast Iran. Okay, now, what we've discussed before, and it's even worse now, water, power, and/or transport infrastructure disintegration. Now, we've also discussed agricultural. Okay, should have put it there as well. I say by early autumn, meaning September. Okay, late summer. This has to go under, no matter what. They're down to 6% of water in the reservoirs for Tehran, and it's winter. It has not rained or snowed enough. It has somewhat, but going into winter, they had something like 10%. At least these are the last figures that I've heard. And even if it's 10% now, not going to hold up. We know summers in Iran can get up to 50 degrees centigrade, meaning over 120 degrees for a few days on end. But let's just say it stands at 40 degrees, which is 104. Not going to manage. And the power grids, they've been attacked also. And fuel, not about to happen. And remember something. Due to a lot of sinkholes, you're having a lot of problems with roads as well. Plus, with an army moving here and there, right, does destroy roads. Transport infrastructure has a problem. We'll be seeing that it will get worse and worse. Okay, very, very hard. Also, to field an army if you don't have water. They may have everything else. Reports are out that they can't get supply vehicles even to bring enough ammunition. But the biggest problem is water. Now, I know people here, I don't know how many people have been in the army, I imagine very few. You have no idea how technically problematic it is to get large water tankers out to supply an army, especially if they're tractor trailers. They have to turn around. You have to resupply smaller tankers. It's not everybody comes with a canteen and stands there, okay? And in long supply lines, that all could be knocked out. Okay, it's a disaster. And people aren't thinking about it. That's the Achilles heel. No water to your army. Within 3 days, the army's finished. Take a look. Economic impact. U.S. global power play. The Arab Gulf states, what are they going to do? They become more dependent on the United States or less? My take, more dependent. They've been hit. They're not willing to get involved directly. They're afraid of being hit more. Okay, meaning that the United States, right? So giving them more of an umbrella. Israel possibly also, although I don't believe that that will be something that's done outright. It could be more of an under the table alliance. What is happening economically and politically with NATO? NATO is distancing itself. Trump doesn't like NATO, but now it looks like they're going to get somewhat involved in keeping the Straits of Hormuz open. Okay. Let's take a look at the finances here. And I have the UN scoring a negation of funds. You notice that they're not involved at all, except for that, what's his name, Guterres. A condemnation here and there, calling for an immediate ceasefire. A lot of nonsense. Okay. Russia's gains and losses. This is the most interesting part, I think, that people aren't fully paying attention to. Price of oil goes up, that aids the Russians. On the other hand, and that's economic stability, but on the other hand, their drone deals with the Iranians are being knocked out. And the Ukrainians are getting involved because they learned how to take out the Russian drone system. And Israel hit an Iranian supply ship. Whether it was full of supplies or going to get supplies from Russia, not clear, but it was taken out in the Caspian Sea. And we've expanded operations against shipping north of Tehran on the Caspian Sea that goes all the way to Russia. That was the Great Link. So Russia's gaining on one hand and losing on the other. Militarily, equipment-wise, whatever, not doing well, but the price of oil going up, so they can dig in longer against Ukraine, and that's going to fall to the Europeans to deal with it. And in a way, it seems like, whether by design or by default, something that Trump has no problem with. He really wants the Europeans at arm's length. He does not consider them really dependable allies. And on the other hand, he doesn't want the Russians to win. Okay? China, Japan, and India. Let's take a look. 40% of Persian Gulf oil goes to China. And 15% of their oil is directly from Iran. Now, they have reserves for a few months. But by the middle of summer, they have a very big problem. We take Japan. They have reserves for over 200 days. They import 70% from the Persian Gulf. And India is the one who has the larger problem. I think they have a couple months of reserves, but it's really not as much as the others. And look, over 60% imports. And India is an ally of Israel. If I was to speak about allies, America's number one, Israel's number two ally is India. So this has to be taken care of quickly to open the Strait of Hormuz, especially for India and Japan. Right? Japan also stands behind Israel. Remember, the Japanese prime minister, she was just in the States, I forgot her name, and sitting there with Trump. They were all, the photo ops or whatever, okay? Very much affects what goes on quite a bit to the east of here. International repercussions, okay? When we look at what is happening, okay? So some of it's local, some of it further on. Dealt with economics before. Israel has regional power projection. We cannot go further than that. Hezbollah is facing defeat. The Americans demanding that we negotiate a peace with Lebanon. We are demanding that they disarm Hezbollah. They don't have the ability. 1/3, 30%, 1/3 of the Lebanese army is Shiite. Now, there are Shiites that are anti-Hezbollah, but let's assume that 20% is pro-Hezbollah in the Lebanese army. You're not going to be able to stop Hezbollah, right? And either these soldiers won't function or they'll function against others in the army. So you can't really depend on them. Israel is involved in moving into South Lebanon. It's been raining, pouring recently, which makes it very, very difficult. Okay, the Americans don't want Israel to move north of the Litani River. We're not going to have much of a choice if we really want to get done with Hezbollah. So it's going to have to be a joint American-Israeli program that Israel, of course, will implement of how to get rid of them. The Lebanese are communities that are not Hezbollah, have not taken the action demanded of them. Israel's projecting into southwest Syria, right? The whole thing with the Druze that are in that area continues, even though it's not in the news. And whereas Israel's, I should say, I want to say Achilles heel, but rather where are things not going well for us in Gaza. It's true, at the moment, we have the yellow line, we have some control, but the Turks are involved and the Qataris are involved. This acceptance of the Gaza plan by Israel, and it may be a trade-off. Trump may say, I give you my full support against Iran, but I like Erdogan, and we know he does. He has a lot of respect for him, like he has for Putin. And okay, I want him in Gaza, and they speak of bringing in Pakistani troops. Pakistan and Turkey have a very good relationship, right? Certainly in international relations and agreeing on with the Muslim Brotherhood. So this is not this is not positive for Israel, but we'll take one step at a time. Let's take a look just in retrospect. The Iran 7-front war, October 7th, right? We've spoken about it, the different fronts with Hamas and in Gaza and the West Bank, Judea, Samaria, the Houthis, Hezbollah, the Iraqi pro-Iranian forces, and Assad's regime. Now, some of those have fallen, like Assad's regime, or curtailed, like in Iraq. Also Hezbollah and Hamas on both fronts. And the Houthis that are still waiting. So Israel has gotten the upper hand, but hasn't won. Okay? And as we know, and I've said it many times, crisis is opportunity. And the U.S. in particular, but Israel also, exploiting the war for strategic, political, military, and economic gain, and particularly the United States on the world scene. In Israel was always understood, regionally what was going on here. That wasn't the big deal. But there's much, much larger steps being taken by the Trump administration. Okay? And this economic crisis globally, well, let's put it like this. This war has got to be over by June or it'll really be felt, right? The impact worldwide. Uh, and as we know, who are the biggest players? And that anybody just reads Samuel Huntington from the 1990s, right? When he wrote of the Clash of Civilizations. It's no longer a bipolar world, it's multipolar. So you got Europe, China, Russia, Japan, India, right? They're the ones playing the big game here. And that's what to look for. I know, we're focused on Israel and what happens specifically here and with Iran, but it's a much wider operation, of course. Here we have Putin with President Xi and Kim from North Korea in one of the meetings. It was a couple of years ago. And over here, we have NATO on the left-hand side. So here's our map of Iran. Just briefly, take the northwest where you have the red. That's the area that is Azeri, Azerbaijan. Southern Azerbaijan could be invaded, could be unified with Azerbaijan, which is just to the north here. The yellow area is Kurdish. And in the southeast, where we have tan, that actually is an area that, how should we put it? Pakistan would be interested. What would happen in the center that's bluish, that's where you have the Persian population. So that would take an overthrow, or onto the streets, the population. Okay, so we have our credits as usual. And as we all know, right? Neeman Academy, educating to safeguard humanity from Islamic Jihad agenda and global anti-Semitism, right? These are the topics we deal with in depth. Our schedule, we're now March 22nd. We've done our overview, open discussion. On the 29th, we'll see what happens. We have to see, it's a week right before Pesach, but for sure will be Q&A with students. May possibly just open it to everybody. Let's see what takes place. It's always full of surprises here in the Middle East. April 5th, middle of Pesach, we're off. And the 12th, we will be dealing with in-depth, right, with lots of background statistics and understandings, legal codes, on, debunking the genocide lie about Gaza. We all should be able to do it, and there will be a webinar in addition to the ebook that we already have out. And our courses, we urge people to sign up, to learn, to get an in-depth understanding. There's now a 20% discount, and the code is never again. All right, whether it be for anti-Semitism, for Farah to Facebook, or exposing Islamic Jihad, safeguarding humanity. Okay, thank you, and your questions.